Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the second webinar of the Home Waste Audit. This is a collaborative science project hosted by the UFT Trash team and fueled by our community and, of course, all of you. Over the past few weeks, we took a deep dive together into our waste bins. And today we are going to take a very deep dive into our data, and we are very, very excited about this. But before we do this, we have a few housekeeping things as well as some review to put all of our hard work in context. So the first thing that I want to share is we want to get to know each other and then acknowledge the land upon which we do our local work. So today, Hannah and I will be your MC, and we'll also talk about the diversity of our waste streams and about the data from the surveys you have been taking in Google Forms. And Hannah will share the data about our waste. So as you might know, I am a co-founder of the UFT Trash team. I'm a social scientist, and I've been working on social impacts of waste for more than a decade. And today I will share some of the survey results with you all. And I have here Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. So I'm UFT Trash team staff, and I also coordinate our International Trash Trap Network. And I have loved digging into all of your waste audit data, and I'm excited to share the results with you.
Yes, we are. That's fun. All right. And finally, before we begin, it's really important to recognize the history of the lands we call home. We are thrilled to have people joining us from all over and extend our acknowledgement to the indigenous and traditional past across all territories. For our team, we will speak to the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most important, recently, the Mississauga of the Credit. I hope I said correctly, I pronounced correctly. And today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So, all right, so let's get started. And before we show the data, we want to give you a quick reminder of why we are here and the objective of this, the objective of this waste audit. And so one of the objectives was to learn about the waste stream in the municipality where you live in. For example, learn what bins you have and what goes in each bin. And another objective was to decrease your waste footprint and divert waste away from your landfill bin by procuring and using products that you can reuse or that go into the other bins, for example, our recycling. So the objective of this webinar and we want to show the difference in waste management. We want to share the survey results about waste behaviors and literacy, and we want to share results showing our self-reported waste habits over the last 4 weeks. So we want to share everything that you talk to us and you share with us in the past 4 weeks. And if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to put this in the chat, and we will answer them in the chat if we are able. Otherwise, we will save them until the Q&A at the end. And it's in just a bit, I will go carefully through the instructions of your audit, which is focused on local solutions to this quickly growing issue. But first, I will recap what we discussed last seminar and webinar and put our project in context of the global issue. So, okay, so let's go. To put our work in the context, last time we met, we told you about the plastic pollution problem. So Hannah, I think she explained about how much we are producing. So in a paper in 2020 shows that we up to 32 million tons of plastic waste enter the world's oceans, rivers, and lakes every year. And this number is growing every year, every minute. And this could increase to 53 million tons by 2030. And we also know that plastic does not decompose. They break it down in smaller and smaller plastics, microplastics, nanoplastics, and it degrades, persists, and accumulates in the environment. That doesn't go away, stay there. And because it stays there, this plastic pollution is threatening wildlife by entanglement, ingestion, and plastic associated with chemicals. And we also shared with you the different ways to solve it. This audit focuses on the first two, that is a reduced consumption and waste management. Within this, there are different ways to reduce our consumption and waste. First, we can reduce the materials we use by reducing consumption and reusing. Second, when we use materials destined to become waste, we can choose ones that fall into more sustainable waste management, for example, not to the landfill, and sent to recycling or composting, keeping it in a circular economy in the system. So to do this, it's really important that we understand our waste stream. As the first step in the survey 2, we ask you to learn more about the management of waste where you live. And we did this for 2 reasons. First, to increase your waste literacy if you didn't know before. And 2, we want to be able to show the combined diversity of waste streams, demonstrating why it is so important to learn about your own city. In a minute, I will share you how harmonized our waste streams are, and how they vary by so much. It can lead to confusion because it's so different. It depends where you are. You can have you put in the different bins that can lead to confusion. But before we share what we found, can anyone raise their hands or tap in the chat and share why knowing about your waste management may help you reduce the waste you send to landfill? Does anyone want to share why you think that is learning about what your waste management can help you to reduce waste in your landfill that you send? I will give you 1 minute. If no one wants to share, that's totally fine. We will see this in our presentation. All right, maybe I will move to the next one. Sorry, I see. Oh, yeah, you can discover proper waste management bins. I did not know plastic bags could go to Recycling Toronto. Yes, so Patrick, that's something we will share what you learned throughout the 4 weeks, but it's true. Toronto, now they accept plastic bags, and this is not the reality for other groups. I went to Collingwood, and I asked about plastic film, so plastic bags, plastics from milk bags, and they all those flimsy plastics, they don't recycle there, and it's like 200 kilometers from Toronto. So yes, they are different, and it can cause confusion because we need to know everywhere we go. All right, so thanks for sharing, Patrick. Thank you all thank you, Patrick, for all these ideas. And now let's look at who participated in our study. So in this year, in our study, we have people from 2 countries, US and Canada. With Canada, we have people from Toronto, Ajax, and King. And with US, we have people from Katy, Texas. I think I pronounced correct, right? It's Katy. Thus, we span only 2 countries and 4 cities, with total 13 people providing data for the waste management survey. And at first glance, these locations are not that different from each other, but let's see how waste management can be. And as a metric, we look at who had pickup for landfill, recycling, and compost. It's pretty common for all to have landfill waste curbside. So seeing you all was not a huge surprise in the waste management. We were also very pleasant, surprised to see everyone has recycling curbside, which is not very common in many places. And for organic, there were 4 participants without it. This is less common in cities and maybe even less common when you live in a condo or apartment building. And I think this was the case for some of the participants here. But sometimes you do have it in your building and you have to ask where is located. Sometimes we don't know that we actually have a compost in your building. So if you are a person without green composting bin, you may have to look at your building's waste management and see if they actually provide this or not, and ask if they have. Overall, we are very lucky, all the participants here. We don't have to go further than our house to keep waste out of our landfill or the environment. This is not the case all over the world. I am from Brazil, and if I want to send my recycling, it's more complicated. So sometimes you have to drive your own recycling to some facilities, which sometimes even has a fee. This is, of course, a barrier, and in some cases, even landfill waste is not collected, making it a real challenge to manage waste sustainable. So we are the lucky one to have the recycling bins, landfill bins, and organic bin in our city. Oh, sorry, I just skipped one slide, sorry. So let's look at some of the little difference. We asked what people can recycle, and we saw that it was sorted by material type or product type. And why we want to ask that? Because generally recycling markets are based on the type of the material, but providing people with product types likely makes it easier. That's why some cities are doing this. And moreover, there are sometimes exceptions for products, even if they are the right material type. So for example, here in the city, we saw in our study, we saw that 11 out of 13 answer product type. That means that majority, and because also the majority, they were from Toronto, they separate their waste by bags, egg carton, milk carton, for plastic bags, or all different product type. And other locations, they probably the person from US, they separate by material type. And one person said that they don't know exactly how they separate their waste. And then about waste harmonization. This data here, and I want to emphasize, this is from 2022, from last year. And I'm sharing this from last year just because we had people from 6 different cities here in Toronto and 3 countries. And so because of that, our waste harmonization was much more diverse. And we want to share this with you because here in our data for this year, we have the majority of people, our participants, they were from Toronto, which makes very uniform because we are from the same city. And what I want to share here is, as you can see, here are 5 very common products that we use in our daily life. Underneath, we can tell the numbers of the participants that can recycle them in their city. So only 2 could recycle black plastics, even if it's likely made out of the same materials, the white or blue. And do you know why that plastic is not recycled in many of the cities? So just let you know, black plastics is very hard to recycle. And many cities don't have the technology to recognize because, for example, here in Toronto, it's a infrared technology, and they don't see the black material when they are separating. So that's why black plastic goes to landfill here in the city. And it's a material that is not, how do you say that? I forgot the word. They don't have a value in the market, so they don't sell very much. So that's why nobody wants to buy this and go to landfill. And then And then we have like plastic bags, 16 out of 23, it goes to the recycling, and 14 out of 23 for foam, they go to the recycling, and 2 out of 23 and 12 out of 23 goes to the to recycling. And straws and cutleries, they are very difficult to recycle. So because they are very small and they get stuck sometimes in the machine, and they cannot separate, depending on the technology they have. So that's why the harmonization is not very great. And one question that I have for you is, do you think waste harmonization across a province, a state, or even a country would help increase the recycling rate? Remember, I said it when we discussed last seminar, webinar, we said that only 10% of the materials are recycled around the world. So do you think this would help, especially in Canada? Yeah, Jen, I think so either. So that's something that actually the government of Canada, they are discussing. They want to harmonization across the province, across the cities, across the province, because if, as I said, and one person mentioned, if we go to a 200 kilometers far from our city, our waste management will be different. So if we have a harmonization, it's easier for us to learn and memorize what we need to do in terms of waste. All right, so move on. Now that I just give you a feedback, what we learn, and about the problems of plastic pollution, I want to share specifically about the waste behaviors and the literacy of what we discussed during the 4 weeks. Let's see how it goes. So the first thing that we ask for all of you, the participants, is we focus on whether you learn something new, reading about your local waste streams, and taking the survey. And I'm very happy to report that 69% of the participants learned something new during this time, which is great. And I would love to share with you some of your comments. Okay, so first, some of the participants said that they learned about their waste stream and the drop-off stations for hazardous waste. So one participant said, there is a site that accepts hazard waste in my neighborhood. You can use any type of plastic bag for your organic waste. And this person didn't know before. And another one said, hey, I didn't know how much the city of Toronto could recycle, which is great. I'm from the US, and a lot of these items are not actually recyclable where I grew up. So it's good to know. I'm glad that you think that Toronto accepts a lot, because I think, I don't know if Toronto accepts so many materials, but compared to other places, maybe yes. And then some participants learn about liners and plastic film. For example, the liners inside. So for example, one participant said, deeply surprised to learn that soft stretch plastic can be recycled. I have forever thought that if it wasn't rigid, it wasn't recycled. Produce bags are the largest surprise, although I hope to buy reusable ones soon. So I'm glad you learned that. So here in Toronto, you can recycle soft plastics, and this is common in other places as well. And another participant said, I learned how items that we think can be recycled are actually lined with plastic and thus shouldn't be in the recycling bin. Yes, it's true. Material lining in plastic is very complicated, because when we have different types of material mixed, it makes the recycling even more complicated. And then another thing that I want to share, some participants from Toronto learned that the city does not have facilities to treat compostable plastics and they are sent to landfill. Yes, unfortunately, we don't have the facility to recycle, to compost compostable plastic, so everything goes to landfill. So don't bother to buy any compostable because it will end up in the landfill. And then another one product that some of the participants comment was about the wooden chopsticks. So wooden chopstick was also a product that surprised some of the participants, and one actually shared with us, I didn't know that you couldn't compost wooden chopstick, popsicle sticks, and compostable plastics. And yes, everything that is wood goes to the landfill as well here in Toronto. And then one participant said black plastics not recyclable. As I mentioned, yes, in Toronto we don't recycle black plastics. So another result I want to share is how many different changes all of you made throughout the waste audit. It's amazing and congratulations. It's not easy to make change in our life, so I'm very happy for you all. And because the list, as you can see, is quite long, I will highlight only some of them. But we have some changes from look for information on how to dispose your waste properly, to learn how to make your own cleaning or personal care product, or invest in a travel mug. One of the participants here, yes, now I have my own travel mug. So congrats for you all. And so let's have a closer look, only the top 3 responses. So the most common ones was the change that you made throughout the home waste audit were related to look for information on how to dispose your waste properly, swap a single-use plastic item for a reusable alternative, and learn how to cook something from scratch instead of buying it in a package. So I am so happy that you are all learning something from scratch and cooking something new. I would love to know what you're cooking, and maybe you can even invite us to eat with you. We'll be more than happy. And then some of those changes were easy and some of them were more difficult. So, and the easiest changes were avoiding single-use plastics, remember which bin to place items in, and buy items with less packaging. And here are some of your answers on why they were simple changes. So the first thing that we had changes related to learning about where the items go. So one participant said, hey, which bin items go which bin the item goes in was interesting information for me, so it was relatively easy to remember. Also, I have always been committed to find ways to reuse, repurpose items, so this was natural. So congrats for that. I did not know that soft plastics, I think we mentioned before, could be recycled before, even so, dropping this entirely from my life is more difficult than other single-use plastics, despite my overall avoidance of single-use in general. Yes, it's hard to avoid soft plastics. And then tissue can go in the green bins. Yes, because this can be a information. So during COVID, actually tissues, they were banned. They could not go in the green bins. You should place this on garbage. But now the city said that you can put it back in the green bin. So yes, nowadays in Toronto, you can put the tissues in your green bin. And it's safe to do it. And then we had change related to refuse waste. For a lot of single-use plastics, one participant said, oh yes, for a lot of single-use plastics, I would previously use such as saran wrap or Stanton, the ramen packaging. I found them either easy to replace with a reusable alternative, so glass food storage container instead of wrapping plastic over a dish, or relatively easy to drop altogether? Oh, yes. And the person said, yes, I can live without static environment. Yes, will be much, it will be better for your health. But it's hard to drop off an item that you like very much to eat just because of the plastic. So congrats on trying to do this. Or maybe you can try to find ramen that it doesn't come in plastics. I don't know if it's possible, but maybe we can try to find a place that sells that. I would also shift it to alternative products. Browns, they said some sardine tins are wrapped in plastic, but others brands are not. So yes, maybe you can choose the ones that is not wrapped in plastic. And then we also had changes related to changes related to reuse waste. So one participant said that reuse and repurposing items it was part of something that they have already come to incorporate in their everyday life, even for their family. And then the person said, it's honestly fun. Try to find alternative ways to use something without needing to go purchase it a million times. For example, in week 3, I made sushi from scratch. Congrats on that. It's really fun to make your own sushi. And again, you can also invite us to eat. If you want to, we can do a sushi night. I love sushi. Although I did use several paper towels. Need to improve on that. That's totally fine. And the person also recognized that a lot of potential waste was saved as opposed to ordering it instead. So yes, we can be creative in a kitchen and try to, when you have time, you can try to cook from scratch, and it can be really fun, and you can save a lot of plastic doing this. And now we have asked about the most difficult change you made throughout the waste audit. And buying items with no packaging was by far the most difficult one. Buying items with less packaging and avoiding single-use plastics were the second and third most difficult changes made. Other difficult changes were also reported, like buy items packaged in recyclable materials, or remember which bins to place items in. And this remember each bins to place items in was is interesting because this was also reported by other participants as one of the easiest change made. So first, it's interesting to see for some people it's really hard to remember, but for others it was easy exercise to do it. And here are some of your answers on why was this the most difficult change. And some participants said that purchasing groceries with no packaging or less packaging was difficult at my local grocery store. And then packaging and single-use plastics are on everything, and they are very hard to avoid, and I agree. It was difficult to find foods and other things that are without any packaging, especially considering COVID and cleanliness. Yes. And what I want to say about this is sometimes changes are not easy to make, especially when they don't depend only on us. Many of the participants reported it's difficult to find items with less or no packaging. Yes, and I understand this because, among other factors, the regular grocery stores and industry, they play a really, really important role on deciding the type of packaging they will sell. So although we have, as a consumer, we have a lot of power, it will stop in the grocery because they are the ones who buy it, unless we use our voice and start to complain and start to let them know that we are not happy with the type of packaging. It's really difficult to avoid or buy items without plastics. And then another factor was convenience. So convenience was a very important reason why it's so difficult to reduce waste. So one participant said, single plastics are just easier to use overall. overall. So I often find myself gravitating towards them. And then another one participant said, I realized that I had the urge to buy more packaged food for convenience during high stress periods, such as midterm season. And I understand, and we all have a busy life. And so convenience it's important as well. And it's part of the process. And the last challenge that I want to share here was to find cost-friendly alternatives to items packaged in plastic. For example, one participant said, oh yeah, some items packaged in recyclable materials were much more expensive than the alternatives. And it's true, depend where you go, depend what you are buying. Sometimes it's harder and then more expensive to find alternative, to buy alternative with less packaging. But we can find many ways to reduce plastic without compromising our budget. But there are many low plastic waste stores and products that are more expensive than regular ones, and we agree on that. But we can start to brainstorm and try to rethink how we are consuming, and maybe be creative and simple, and make simple change throughout our daily life. We just need to keep searching and communicating and talk to other people and see what they are doing as well. And then last thing that I want to share, and we ask where you found tips to reduce waste, and websites, and the UFT trash team were the second most common place for seeking information. You also you said that most common one was websites, and I would love to hear from you, and maybe you can share here in the chat which website you looked for information, what do you which one you would like to share with everyone and say, hey, this was a very important, and I thought was very useful for me throughout my process of trying to reduce waste. If you have anyone that you remember, you can type in this chat. And I will move on, and maybe I will see later here in the chat if you share anything. All right, so yes, I said that was the last thing. That's my last thing that I want to share. Favorite waste reduction tip. Some tips that you all share with us was related to refuse producing waste. So some of you said switching to reusable products, like substituting kitchen paper towel with reusable wipes can heavily reduce the amount of paper towel that we use. Carrying around a handkerchief to avoid paper towels and napkins. So we went to a conference in South Korea last year, and they all gave us a handkerchief. So they didn't provide any paper towel in the washrooms. So we need to use this every day. And it was really fun. And now I carry with me everywhere I go. I put it in my purse. And it's a very easy change. We just need to have a cloth, and doesn't need to be anything fancy. And now I carry and use every day. Some of the changes that you made were and tips that you want to share were related to food. The eat me first be in the fridge. This has helped me reduce my food waste, one of participants said. So if you don't remember eat me first, it just I always have that with me too. So I put in a really easy way to see it in the fridge. The foods that need to be consumed right away, otherwise it's going to be waste, like leftovers and things like that. And then one participant said conserve fruits and vegetables for longer. So I will share this because it's a very cool tip. For example, my mom and I, the participant said, have learned how to store salad for a long time so that doesn't go to waste. This is done by placing it in a reusable container with a paper towel on the top of it, and that prevents it from shriveling up sooner. So I didn't know that, and I loved this tip, and I think I will use in my home as well. Thanks for sharing. And then I think one of the participants also said about go loose leaf on the T and then switch to more reusable items at home. So thank you so much for sharing your favorite waste reduction tips with us. If you have any other thing that you want to share, other tips that you want to share, you can type in the chat. It will be super fun to see it. We always are learning. Every day we learn something new. So we will be happy if you can share anything fun that you learn. And before I pass over to Hannah, who will present the data from the waste audit, I just would like to open for a quick question. 100% of the participants who answered the survey would recommend the home waste audit. And my question is, why do you think home waste audit was helpful to you? Ooh, silence. Okay, one person said, made me realize how much garbage I produced in the first place, made me realize there was a problem. To begin with, yes, I found it really eye-opening. I thought it was good at diverting waste before, but turns out I still need to do a lot of work. It made me more conscious of how I consume and what type of waste I produce. Usually I don't think about those things super consciously. Plus I learned so much about where each item goes. So yes, I agree. When I did my first home waste audit first time, it was really eye-opening for me, because when you see the amount that everything that you produce, you understand there is a problem. And then you said that learn how much about where each item goes. Yes, that's something that I think we all work every day and like try to get better, improve every day. And here in Toronto, luckily we have the waste wizard that really make our life much easier and make us to learn quicker. But it's a work in progress. Every day we need to think about it and try to make something better and learn something new. So yes, thanks so much for sharing. It was very fun to look into your data. So now I will pass to Hannah, who will share more about your data.
Okay, thanks, Rasa. So I'll just let you know when I want to go to the next slide as I go through. So now we've been through all the survey responses, I'm now going to go to the waste audit data itself. So this includes all the items that you counted and noted down in your data sheets that were submitted to us. So thank you again for doing this. And the results are pretty interesting. So we'll go through those now. Next slide. Thank you. One of the first questions we asked you in survey 1 of the home waste audit was, how many items of trash, both recycling and landfill, do you estimate your household produces in 1 week? And for this question, we can see here that results were quite mixed, but most respondents estimated they threw away either 0 to 50 items per week, which might be a smaller household size or someone who's pretty good already at managing their waste, or 101 to 150 items per week. So it was split 39% between the two of those. And when we compared this to actual results from week 1 of the waste audit, where we kept business as usual, here we can see that in reality, most households throw away 51 to 100 items per week, so somewhere in between, and no households threw away less than 50 items per week, which many of you thought you might. So this shows that many of us underestimated our weekly waste generation, just as was just mentioned. So when you're actually counting it and documenting each item, it's much easier to see how much waste you can produce. But if you're not keeping track of your waste, often you don't realize all those little bits and pieces that you throw away each day. And also, if you have multiple people in one household, it's difficult to know how much everyone else is throwing away in addition to yourself. So this is a really good way to see that, and we can see that many of you threw away more than you thought. Okay, so here we have the overall results from our home waste audit. This is the average waste among households over the 4 weeks. So we have landfill waste in the blue, we have recycling in the black beneath it, and then total waste, which is both of them added together, in orange. And so as we go through, we can see that the amount of waste items produced per household in total did not change much between week 1 and week 4. When we dug into the individual results, we can see that for landfill waste, most results stayed the same. Well, some results stayed the same. Actually, most people decreased their landfill waste. So 5 out of 8 people households decreased their landfill waste over the 4-week audit. However, some people had their landfill waste increase. So one household had an increase of about 200 items between week 1 and week 3, which might have affected this average. And when we dug into the recycling results, there was quite a mix. So some households reduced their recycling waste. So 3 out of 8 households reduced their recycling waste. Some increased their recycling, and that's why this has kind of stayed relatively stable throughout the challenge. But the reason that some people might have increased their recycling waste would be because they were previously throwing things into the landfill bin. They've now learned that you can put those things in the recycling, and so their recycling has increased. This is not necessarily a bad thing. It's still an impressive result. There was a couple of other things that people noted which might have affected the results over the 4-week period. And so one was that people had people over for birthdays or friends over for dinner. Some people were not well, so I'm sorry that you were poorly. They were sick, but some people used a lot of tissues throughout the audit. And some people had things that they were clearing out from previous weeks before we even started to try and decrease our waste. So this is all to show that you can try your best to decrease your waste. Sometimes life things happen and you produce more waste than normal, and that's totally fine. And then there's things that we use throughout our daily life that can accumulate over time. And also the fact that it can be a longer term process than 4 weeks. So throughout this time, you might have learned a lot of stuff about what you can throw away and what you can't, and what can go into different bins. And after this, if we were to continue monitoring our waste, we might see continued decreases in both landfill and recycling bins. So overall, still a very impressive result. And to dig into this a little bit further, I mentioned that there was differences in between households in the waste that you throw away. And this is just to show you, these are all anonymized, so no one is being compared against one another here. This is just to show that everyone's waste habits look very different. So this is the results for week 1, and this is your item count for week 1. So you can see some people have much more recycling waste than they do landfill, others have much more landfill than recycling, and it really depends on how many people are in your household and all the things that you use. So it's just really interesting to see how the differences, how we all started on a different level, and so that's affected our results as well. So although we didn't see overall a huge change in waste generation over the 4-week audit, I wanted to share with you an example of how even the smallest change can have a huge collective impact. So in this audit, we had 8 households that took part and submitted data on their waste generation, and it equated to 19 individuals throughout the household. So if each individual reduced their landfill waste by just 5 items per week, over the course of a year, that would equate to over 4,000 less items going to landfill. So this just shows that for people trying to make individual changes, there's often a bit of a concern that these won't make a big difference and it's just you and there's all other people that might not be making a difference. But if we all think the same thing and we're all trying to make small differences, we can make a huge change as a community or even as a whole country if we all decided to decrease our waste by just a seemingly small amount. So the motivation for you all to keep going after the audit. So you'll also remember that on the data sheets, we asked you to categorize items. So we had material type categories of plastic, paper, metal, glass, mixed materials, and other. And you can see here that in the landfill waste, these are those categories over the 4 weeks. So you can see on the top in orange, paper was actually the most common item in landfill waste throughout the 4 weeks, averaging around 32 items per week. It dropped a little bit to 30 by week 4. This is actually quite an unusual result. Usually plastic is the top item in landfill waste, and mostly plastic packaging. So it's really interesting to see this in your results. I think largely, well, we can dig into what those items were. I was going to give something away then. The second most common item in landfill waste was plastic, followed by mixed materials. So mixed materials are really common in our day-to-day lives. They're items that we can't easily separate the two materials for recycling. So things like chip bags and things where you have two things together. So like coffee cups, for example, they have a paper outside and then a plastic lining, and those two things can't easily be separated for recycling, so often they get put into landfill bins. And what was great to see was these were going in your landfill bins and not in the recycling. So that was a very good result. So before I go on to the next slide, I want to hear some of your guesses about what items you think might have been most popular in the paper category in landfill waste. In week 1, this is, so before you started to reduce your waste. Any guesses? You can type them in the chat. What do you think was the most common paper item in landfill waste? We have cereal boxes as a guess from Susan. Maybe. This is fun. Any other guesses? Pizza boxes, paper towels, used napkins. Okay, yeah, these are really common items that often we see in the home waste audit. So they're all great guesses. If we have no other guesses, Rafi, you can go to the next slide and do the big reveal. So the most common item by far in our landfill waste was tissues and paper towels, and then one household categorized these both together. So if we sum all of these together as like one category, it's pretty huge. It's in the 200 range, just in week 1 within 8 households. So this is quite a lot. Well, not quite a lot. It's very clearly the total. This is followed by paper packaging and wrappers, then toilet paper rolls, and then coffee filters. And so this is interesting to see. So obviously the tissues can be explained by a couple of things. We had people who had parties, someone was ill, so we had lots of different reasons why the tissues and the paper towels might be more numerous. But I wanted to ask people's thoughts about the coffee filters in landfill waste. So did you find, if anyone uses these or has any insight on this from using them, did you find that this was in your guidelines did you find this change when you looked into your recycling guidelines in your local area? Because this is week 1, so I'm curious to know if anyone would put this anywhere else in their bins, the coffee filters. If we have no guesses, I can give a bit of insight from Toronto. I think it's the same. So you can put these in your organic bin in Toronto. Yeah, so you can go in your green bin. Good, cool. So yeah, so that's interesting. So I think a lot of this happens with a few things. There's a few food items and paper items that if they're soiled, you can put them in your organics bin. So this is a really nice thing that you can add to your organics in the future if you do have coffee filters or I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Susan and Rafa, like paper towels with food on them, on organic debris, you can put those in your green bin too. So that was really interesting to see. Toilet paper rolls are also something that can go in your recycling bin, as can paper packaging and wrappers if it's not got plastic on it or another mixed material. So these things can go in the recycling bin too. Okay, so now we've got the top plastic items in landfill waste. I won't make you guess this one. So Bassy, you can go to the next slide. So the top item by far was soft plastic packaging, which I think none of us would be surprised by, as it seemed when Rafa went through the survey results that people found it really hard to find items that weren't packaged in soft plastic packaging and things that were more expensive. But second on the list was drink bottles. So I know that this is week 1. So I know that some of you switched to reusable bottles throughout the home waste audit, which is great to hear. And that is one really easy way that you can reduce the number of drink bottles that you throw in your landfill waste. But also, I assume in some areas these can also go into recycling too. So something to look into if you haven't already. Plastic bags are another one, and I know we discussed this earlier. They can go into recycling now in Toronto. Stickers and coffee pods. So stickers are interesting. There wasn't loads of these, but these do come up a lot in when we run the home waste audit. Fruit stickers and other types of stickers. It's funny how much we don't notice these until we're counting them. So they're one item that comes up quite frequently. Okay, let's go into recycling waste. So within recycling waste, the most common material type throughout the waste audit was paper, starting at around 31 items per week. It increased slightly, and we had a little dip between paper and plastic at week 3. And then the second most common item was plastic. So we had a very similar trend here to what we had in the landfill waste. And interestingly, throughout the audit, the average number of items thrown into landfill versus recycling were pretty even for plastic, hovering at between 20 to 30 items per week. So that was really interesting, that plastic number stayed the same between the two bins. On the lower end of the scale for recycling was glass, mixed materials, and other. And the mixed materials result here was again not surprising because most mixed materials can't be recycled, and the majority of entries for this category were Tetra Paks, which can be recycled in Toronto, where most of our participants were from. So I'd like you to have another quick guess, this time for what item you think was the most common paper item in week 1 of the audit. Any guesses in the chat? The most common paper item in recycling. So we have paper in landfill. Okay, a couple of guesses. Okay, if we don't have any more guesses, Rafa, you can reveal. Okay, so the top item was scrap paper, and this was definitely a big win. So with 160, with nearly 90 items thrown away throughout the first week of the audit. And beyond that, we can see that paper packaging and wrappers were second, paper towels, toilet paper rolls, and cardboard boxes were also in the top 5 items. And so I am interested to hear from those of you who took part in the audit as to why you think there might have been so much scrap paper. And I know that this can be quite a broad category. So I'm curious to know whether you were getting a lot of flyers, which we know has been something in the past that people have spoken about, or whether it was that you had loads of scrap paper and you had to clear out for some reason. I'm just interested to hear what people's scrap paper was largely consisting of. So yeah, let us know in the chat if you have any insight on that. Mostly flyers for Jen. Yeah, there's a lot of those. I think most of my paper waste is flyers as well. So what Chelsea's done, Chelsea's not here today, but one thing that she did do in the past was she made a little makeshift "No flyers, please" sign and put it on her post box, and that seemed to decrease it a fair bit. Not all of them. Some people just choose to ignore them and put them in there anyway, but it does decrease some of it. So that's an idea if you're trying to reduce your flyaways. Okay, we can go to the next slide now, Rafa. I know we're tight on time, so I'm going to just keep moving through. So the most common plastic items in recycling waste were drink bottles, at just under 35 items per week. And then we have hard plastic packaging, other plastic packaging, soft plastic packaging, lots of plastic packaging overall. And then also coffee pods are one of the top items in recycling waste. So this is an interesting one. So drinks bottles, yes, they can go in the recycling. This is week 1 again. So something that can be reduced in future by using reusables or avoiding certain drinks or buying them in bulk. So you have one large bottle rather than lots of small bottles. Plastic packaging is a problem that I think we all try and avoid, but it's one of the hardest things to avoid. Coffee pods I wanted to touch on just because so I'm based in Vancouver in British Columbia, and you can recycle like certain brands of coffee pods in British Columbia and Quebec, I believe, but then in other areas you can't. And I think there's sometimes misleading information on the coffee pod packaging that tells you that they're recyclable, and they might not be. So I won't dig into this too much now, but one thing to note, if you do have a coffee machine that uses coffee pods, is to check the packaging, but also check online. Double check that it can go in the recycling. Some of them have return schemes where you can send back your coffee pods. So that's also another option that some of them offer. But just make sure you're not being tricked into thinking that you're recycling them when they're going to go to landfill. But I think in this case, the person was right. So in summary, participants felt like they'd learned something new, which is great. It's what we wanted. We learned the waste streams and reusing materials was simple, but buying products with less packaging was tough. Overall, average waste generation remained similar throughout the 4-week audit, but hopefully, you can tell us if we're right or wrong here, information that you learned could help us continue to decrease our waste footprint in the long term. So please do send us, we're tight on time here, but please do send us any thoughts you have about how we might be able to improve the audit or help you continue your waste, decreasing your waste footprint in future as well. Please send them over to us. Okay, and then we just wanted to share, so some of you were great and took loads of photos throughout your audit. So one of the best parts of it is us seeing you get involved. So here are some pictures of our participants in action, some sneak peeks behind the scenes, and feel free to share in the chat if your waste audit process looks similar. I remember mine did when we did this for the first time. And then finally, we just wanted to say it was really great having each of you to participate, and you're very lucky. We're going to email everyone a copy of your very own Home Waste Audit certificate that you can proudly display and frame in your homes, in your offices, wherever you like. So congratulations to all of you on officially becoming Home Waste Literacy experts. And waste reduction doesn't have to end here, although the webinar will very shortly. So for further information about how you can reduce your waste, you can see our trash team tips online and find them on our website. And so I guess we just want to finish up to the last slide and just say thank you again for joining. We're going to send you one more survey in the future as a follow-up to learn about your long-term waste habits. So please fill that in, and it will provide us some really useful information about how this has affected you in the long term as well as the short term. And also keep an eye out on our website because we've got lots of fun events coming up in the next couple of months. And I know we are over time, but if anyone has any questions or wants to share anything in the chat for the next couple of minutes, then please do so. But thank you once again for taking part. Jenna, I'm glad to see that you're happy about getting your certificate.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes, it was really fun to see your data and see all the changes that you are making and all the things that you are learning. I think this is an experience that we are doing this for a couple of years, but we always learn something new. And as we are reading our notes and everything, so thanks for sharing with us.